Okay, welcome back. Look, the research is clear. What we do works. There isn't any doubt about that. In 1950s, when Hans Eysenck said psychotherapy wasn't any more beneficial than a placebo, he was wrong. The data is overwhelming. The data is also very clear. No particular model or technique will help you improve your outcomes. What's more, our field continues to struggle with dropout. We spend a lot of time and effort getting people into therapy, and then they don't continue in therapy until they've achieved a change in their well-being or functioning. In addition, a significant percentage of the people that we work with who do stay, 30 to 40%, end up experiencing no benefit despite an outlay of time and money. How can we get better? Well, the bad news is that much of what our field has pursued really doesn't have a return on investment. What is that? Clinical training, continuing education credits, supervision, etc. Is it any wonder, really, why outcomes, when we look as far back as 1976, the first meta-analytic study that was done by Smith and Glass, and compare the outcomes of psychotherapy from that study to current meta-analytic studies, we find no improvement in the overall effect size of psychological treatment. Don't get discouraged. Despite the fact that our outcomes have remained stagnant for decades, there is a way to improve them. We've been talking about that under the guise of feedback-informed care. It's a way of working that improves outcomes, retention, and also can help you become a more effective therapist. What we do know is client engagement is the key to success. We also know that the alliance among all the variables that contribute to outcome is key. Tracking progress and the alliance via standardized tool like the ORS and SRS can give therapists vital clues about those people that they're not connecting with and not helping in real time so that they can do something to improve the chances of helping that particular clients. But whether or not feedback works for you, it turns out, depends on your attitude. We know from the research that therapists who value feedback and opt to receive it by using standardized tools like the ORS and SRS have better outcomes. Nevertheless, and here's the frightening part, of the vast number of people who hear about feedback-informed treatment, very few go on to implement it successfully in their work. For example, in one study, despite being presented with the research about the benefits of routinely seeking feedback via formal measures, only 60% of therapists in an agency opted to administer the measures on a routine basis. So, where does the objection come from? When I talk to therapists, they frequently say things like, well, maybe the clients won't like it. But here again, there's actually some research evidence to say that's not the case. When surveyed, 92% of people in healthcare say that they like the use of outcome measures. This suggests, sadly, that most of the objections tend to come from therapists, that our attitude about using formal paper and pencil measures might get in the way of this critical process. It turns out that how therapists feel about outcome measures also influences what they do with the feedback when they receive it. In fact, those therapists who do use feedback, according to research by Wolfgang Lutz out of Germany, only discuss it about 60% of the time with their clients. Only 27% of the time do they adjust therapeutic interventions. And I'm talking about when the client is saying that the alliance between themselves and the therapist is encountering problems and when they're not experiencing progress. Only about 30% of the time do they vary the intensity or dose. And only 9% of the time, about 1 out of 10 cases, do they consult with others about what they might be able to change about the work that they're doing with a client for which there are problems. Suffice it to say, there is little use in asking for feedback and then ignoring it. Among those who never get started, there are some common objections. I understand these. We are busy professionals. One of them is, of course, it just takes too much time. Another is that somehow it might conflict with a particular practitioner's therapeutic style or approach. And the third is that clients won't like it. Now, as I've already indicated, the data seem to say that actually clients value completing the measures. So what we do know is that the attitude the therapist has about administering the forms, doing routine outcome measuring, can really influence the impact of the measures in clinical practice. So much so that the data show that therapists' attitudes really predict whether they'll implement ROM successfully in their work. Sometimes when I talk about the measures, I hear an objection from the therapists, and one of those objections, and I think it's a very realistic concern, is that clients won't like it. That's what our whole business is about. Our business is about helping clients. But let me reassure you, the data is actually fairly clear. In a large survey of consumers engaging in treatment, 92% when asked said they valued the opportunity to give feedback via formal measures. So it doesn't really seem to have to do with clients feeling upset by the administration of such tools. Another objection that's quite common is that it will take a lot of time. What I can tell you is that use of the ORS and SRS takes between a minute or two at the beginning and end of each session. But there's a huge return on investment for spending that brief amount of time talking with clients about their experience between visits and, of course, their experience of the visit they've just had. Finally, whenever you're starting to learn something new, of course, there's a sense of awkwardness. You're an experienced therapist. Now you're introducing measures, and many therapists, myself included, start to get feedback that they're not sure what to do with. For example, low alliance scores. What do you do with that? There may even be questions about whether that might not threaten your job security if your boss finds out that some of your clients found the session not very rewarding or actually didn't care for the way that you were working. Whatever the objection, the data indicate that the return on the investment is large if you can get beyond those. As I said the last time we spoke, using the measures decreases dropouts by as much as half, reduces no-show rates, increases client engagement, and almost doubles the effect size of treatment. Also, because you're finding out where to direct clinical services, and especially directing them towards those clients you're not helping, it reduces the length of stay and hospitalizations amongst the clients that are in the severe range of functioning. So the benefits, at least as far as the research is concerned, are well established. So let me tell you about a brand new study that just came out from a psychologist and colleague, Heidi Bratland, out of Norway. Their particular team, working in Trondheim, Norway, were implementing feedback-informed treatment. Of course, they'd seen all the research and they were motivated to give it a try. But their particular study found something curious. Let me give you the good news first. The good news was that when therapists used ROM, their clients were 2.5 times more likely to experience improvement. That's pretty impressive. Here is the rub. To get that degree of improvement, it took nearly 3 to 4 years. What am I saying? There's a difference between a good idea and implementing a good idea. So you have to be patient with yourself. There's going to be a steep learning curve as you integrate these ideas into your practice. It won't come easy. The scales will also highlight deficits and weaknesses in your performance that you'll have to look for answers to. And yet there's hope. If you stick with it long enough, your outcomes will improve. I'd like to help with that. And so at the conclusion of this video, I'm offering the second manual in the Feedback-Informed Treatment and Training Manual series. There are 6 total. Manual number 2 lays out in detail how to use the measures in your clinical practice. Not only how to introduce them, but how to integrate them into your work. not only integrate them into your work, but use them to inform your clinical practice so you get better results. All you have to do at the end of this video is simply click on the link, and the manual will be yours for free.